Jai Jinendra, everyone. Welcome to today's session on Jainism for beginners. We welcome Bijalben today, as she's going to continue the topic of 12 types of fast or 12 types of taps. Bijalben, I presume you want it as interactive as possible.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. I'm going to hand over to you, Bijalben, now.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
Pranam, Jai Jinendra, Badane, Bada Sukh Sata Maso, and I trust Badani Aymbil, Sukh Shanti Thi Thai Gaya Se. We'll start with Mangalachara and then we'll get going. Namo Arihantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Uvajjayanam, Namo Loe Sappasahunam, Eso Panchanamukkaro, Sabba Pava Panasano, Manglanam Cha Sabbe Simpadamam Havai Mangalam. Namo Arihantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Ayariyanam, Namo Uvajjayanam, Namo Loe Sappasahunam, Eso Panchanamukkaro, Sabba Pava Panasano, Manglanam Cha Sabbe Simpadamam Havai Mangalam. Adimam Prithvinatham, Adimam Nishparigraham, Adimam Tirthanatham Cha Rishabhaswaminam Stama. Kamate Dharanendra Cha Sochitam Karma Kurvati Prabhustulya Manovrutti Pashvanatha Shrieshtuva Srimate Veeranathaya Sanathaya Putashriya Mahananda Saroraja Maradayarhati Namaha. अंगूठे अमृत वसे लब्धि तना भंडार श्री गुरु गौतम समरिये वांछित फल दाता तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः. Okay, I can see you all today, so that's good. So today, last time, we spoke about Bahyata, and there are 6 types of Bahyata. Can anybody remember what they are? Can they unmute, Darshana?
Yeah, they should be able to unmute themselves.
Okay.
And if they don't feel comfortable unmuting, they can always put it into the chat.
Yeah.
Michelle, shall I say it?
You can say 1 or 2. We'll let some of the others answer as well.
It's Ansan Unodrik.
Yeah. Okay, good. Very good. Anybody else? Go on then, Smita.
Ruti Sangshep, Rastya,
Yeah.
Kaya Klesh, Netalinta.
Very good. Well done. Okay, very good. And then, so those Bayata are external austerities, and therefore like related to food fasting, which is unsun, giving up something for a short period of time or a longer period of time, food and water. And then we went through the different types of things that you can do. You can do Naukasi, Porsi, then you can do Ekashno, Byashno, Aymbil, Upwas, and then longer taps. And then we talked about Unodari, which is having a little bit less. So you have one less rotli or something else, less than what you normally have. Then Rastyag is giving up something that you really like for a short period of time or a longer period of time, or even an hour. Then we had Ruti Sankshep.
All day. Dove Advanced Care, 24-hour lotion soft skin from your sebum and fluid.
Kaya Klesh and Sanlinta. Kaya Klesh being foregoing some bodily comforts, and we talked about sadhu satvijis and how they travel barefoot or bear the heat, extreme cold without any heating or air conditioning and so on. And then we talked about Sanlinta as well. So, you know, like trying to stop the kashais, mind, body, and speech from creating karma when you're faced with something, just to keep your calm. Today we'll look at Abhyantar Tap. I'll just share my screen with you. Okay, so these are the 6 types of Abhyantar Tap. Involves focusing on controlling the desires, which result in purifying the internal thoughts. So this is all of Abhyantar Tap is mainly to do with your mind and not to do with food. That's why it's internal. It again helps to control the 4 passions. And Abhyantar Tap actually makes Baya Tap a lot easier and more effortless to be able to do the fasting. So the 6 types of Abhyantar Tap are Prayashchit, Vinay, Vayavach, Swadhyay, Kayotsarg or Kausarg, as some people may know it, and Dhyan. So we look at Prayashchit. Prayashchit is when you confess and repent. You ask for forgiveness for the various errors of commission and omission which we have done knowingly or unknowingly. You know, if you look at your day, we do things. Sometimes we're aware and sometimes we're not aware that we've done something to hurt somebody, or we do hinsa to other beings, not just, you know, people. So all souls that have achieved Keval Gnan and Siddhpad have at their heart and soul the spirit of Prayashchit or repentance. They've recalled their ashubh karma, their inauspicious actions, acknowledged them, accepted them, and cleansed their karma to achieve Siddhpad. So in this life, as we've gone through learning, we realize that in our previous, you know, hundreds or thousands or millions of births that we've taken, we don't actually have any awareness at this point of what we've done, and nobody else knows. The only person, it's only our soul that's witness to everything and knows what we've done, because that's been the continuous, what's gone through each and every life. And that remains. So for this particular life, we have to be mindful not to repeat those errors or mistakes again and again. And when we do commit them, not to be happy about it or revering it or boast about it as an achievement. Because when we do this, we bind it. The karma particles are so strong that they bind to our soul, and they're called nikachit karma. And it's very difficult then to remove or shed this karma by doing the different types of tap or austerity. A lot of you may know about King Shrenik, and you know he went hunting, and he, with his bow and arrow, he shot a deer, and he found out then after that the deer was pregnant. So he was so happy, and he was celebrating and boasting about his skills as an archer and a marksman, and the fact that with one arrow he managed to kill 2 lives. And this sealed his birth in Narak. Later on, he came under the guidance of Mahavir Prabhu, and his path changed. And, you know, he bound Tirthankar Nam Karma. So although currently he is in Narak, he is going to be the Tirthankar in the next Jovisi that's going to happen. So even though he's, you know, managed to do Tirthankar Nam Karma, that karma that he did bound by killing the deer was so strong that he still has to live out his life in Narak. So Atma Shuddhi, our soul cleansing, really should happen daily whenever possible, and with a Guru Maharaj whenever that's possible as well. And what are some of the ways of doing that? So a lot of people practice twice daily pratikama as a form of repentance for the deeds that we've done in the day and in the night, because we're not aware our soul is still binding even while we're sleeping. So pratikama is a form of repentance. Bhavalochana, which is where you make a note of all the things that you think that you've done, and you give it to Acharya Maharaj Sahib, and they read it, and then they then provide you with things that you can do to shed that or correct that error as a repentance. And that could be anything. You can explain what you're able to do. So some people can do Upwas or Ekashana. So it could be fasting, it could be maras, it could be swadhyay and samayik, or listening to sermons and pravachans. It could be seva, it could be anything. So basically, whatever you are able to do is what is prescribed for you, but it means that you are cleansing what you've already done. Then every 15 days when there's chaudas, there's pratikama. So you can do that for the last 15 days. You can repent for it. Every 4 months, there's chomasi chaudas pratikama, which is a great opportunity to do it. And of course, once a year, there's savansari pratikama, which really is a must to cleanse the karmas that have been bound throughout the year. And then daily soul cleansing practice. You know how we clean everything else in our house, in our car, our desks, carpet, sink, cleanse your soul. You know, there's a Satlak Sutra, the Adar Babasthanak Sutra, and you don't have to know this by heart. You can just read it. It takes literally minutes. Lagu Pratikaman, which is Chaityavandan, that can be done as well. And if nothing else, you can just say, you know, reflect on your day for a few minutes at the end of the day and see what's happened, where you can improve, and say Vichamidukram, do your Shamatna. Even that's really good to do. And a lot of you are probably doing it already, so great if you are. But it's just something small that can be done. There's a story about Yamun Raja, which I'll just say briefly. He was going through a forest and he saw this sadhu called Dandamuni, who was doing dhyan, kayatsak dhyan under a tree and under a bijora tree. Bijora is like a citrus fruit near the banks of Yamun River. And the king saw this Muni and felt enraged. And he picked up the fruit and started throwing it at the Muni. And the king's men who were with him saw this and picked up stones from around and started throwing them at the Muni as well. Now, Muni was in deep meditation, and although he felt the pain, he remained still, he remained steadfast in his dhyan, and he kept his spirits up. He thought that I'm getting the fruits of the things that I've done in the past, of my past karma. I must have done something. And he didn't blame the king or his men for what was going on. And eventually fell to the ground injured. But his mental dialogue was still positive and pure. He did Shamapna and he achieved Kevalagnan and Moksha on the same day. The devs from Devlok came with beautiful garlands to do his last rites. And when the king saw this, he realized his mistake and what an elevated Dandamuni was. His soul was so elevated. So he felt remorseful and he started crying. So Indra Maharaja said to him that it's good that you've accepted your mistake, but you must now go to a Sadhu Bhagwan to find out what you can do to as a form of prayashchit for what you've done. So he went to Sadhu Maharaj, and Sadhu Maharaj says, the only way for you to do better for what you've done is to take Diksha, take Charitra. So he takes Charitra, and then he makes an intention that every time the scene of Dandamuni being injured by him comes to his mind, he will forego a meal. And sadly for him, or actually maybe not sadly for him, he actually in his life he wasn't able to have any meals because that scene was so strongly ingrained in his mind, and he was so full of guilt that it just kept coming up, so he wasn't able to have any meals. So when his soul left his body, he actually went to Devlok as a result. And if he hadn't done so, he would have definitely gone to Narak. So that's the value of Prayashchit and doing Tapasya. It can basically turn everything around. I'm going to move on to Vinay. Is there any questions on Prayashchit?
I haven't received any Bijalben.
Okay. So next one is Vinay. And it's very, very talked about, Vinay, and it's something really, really important and something to embrace, really. And I'm sure everybody's doing something or the other, but this is just to give a few more things that you may or may not be aware of. So Vinay, one must cultivate humility, politeness, and respect towards everyone. And that's every life. It leads to tolerance and sympathy and compassion towards others. And it helps us overcome our ego and anger and some of our other passions. So our compassion through mind, body, and speech. Ideally, everything is in line, not one, you might be doing something, but in your mind, if something else is going on, it needs to be synchronized. It can't be that, oh, I really don't want to do this, but I'm having to do it. Or, I've done this for you so many times, but you don't ever do anything for me. Not that kind of talk going on in your mind. And one should be humble and respectful to gurus. So, our first gurus, our pratham gurus, our parents, and then teachers, then sadhu sadhvijis, and gurus. There's so many. We learn so many things from so many people. So all the gurus, Dev, Dharma, knowledge as well, respectful to knowledge, and each and every being, whether it be animals, insects, plants, everything. So Vinay is the Dharma no Mool, it's our root, and it's really highly ranked bhav, the sentiment that you have and the way if you are conducting yourself with Vinay. And if there is arrogance or ego, Vinay doesn't surface. It kind of is one or the other. So if there is disrespect, we bind, especially towards knowledge, we bind Gnanavarniya karma, which surface later. And, often you see people can't remember things, or it's very difficult to learn something, no matter how hard you try. And there's a story about Mastush Muni, who had trouble learning 2 words. He tried for 12 years, and he just couldn't get these 2 words. It was he kept saying Marush Matush. Sorry, that's the words that he was meant to learn, Marush and Matush, but he kept saying Mastush. And the younger priests, and they were laughing at him, but he didn't take that to heart. He felt internally, he felt that what must I have done to be in this position where I can't actually just remember 2 words. But he didn't give up. He kept feeling remorse. He kept saying Shamapna. And he was very, very grateful to his guru, who was really compassionate and patient with him. And in the end, he achieved Kevalgnan, just from trying and being on that positive path. Ego and arrogance gives us Neech Gotra, which is you're born in a lower kind of being, whether that be caste or, where you don't have a lot. There is no ease and grace as you progress through life. it's very limited. There's lots of barriers. Antray karmas blocking all the time. You know, when you feel like you're going against the grain, no matter how hard you try. And if steady with Vinay, everything kind of works and it's effortless and it flows. Even the smallest kriya that you do achieves major labh or big punya and fruits. So it's a significantly beneficial tap for those that can't do food fasting. Melts away the ego and arrogance. It's the destroyer of our 8 karmas. Even Namo Arihantanam, if you look at Namo Arihantanam, Namo means ke hun namuchu, ke hun naman karuchu, I'm bowing down to Bhagwan. And that's Vinay, because you're bowing down, you're paying respects. And then it's Arihantanam. So it makes you namra, it makes you respectful even before you say Arihantanam. And you bow down with Vinay. Without Vinay, the high level of bhav that you need, the shuddha bhav, that helps you do the tapasya and kriya, it doesn't arise. It's when you have Vinay, there's so many things that come along with it. Sometimes, you know, we think we've done something or we're doing something to gain something else. But with a lot of these things, you just focus on this and everything else just sorts itself out and comes along. So here I just had some pictures of different types of respect, compassion, and care. And then a couple of examples. Ravan from the Ramayana. So he had strength, he had Siddhi, he had so much knowledge, he was very accomplished, he was very learned, Jnani, you know, academic, he had wealth, sampatti, he had so much, he had this vast kingdom, but he lost everything because of his man and arrogance. Duryodhan from Mahabharata, similarly, you know, he had a huge cavalry, he had a kingdom, and again, he lost everything because of his greed and arrogance, because the Vinay was missing. So from having clean, positive mind, which is on one side, and then to doing the largest deeds, you know, charity or helping those in need with food, time, seva, and just having a positive and compassionate mind towards everything, towards every living being, sending good thoughts to people. You know, in our midst, we've got some extremely elevated souls. And with the advent of technology, we're so fortunate to be able to, we might not be in India amongst the Guru Maharajas and, you know, all the other people, but we are able to see, view things, listen to things, and hear about it. You know, if I take the example of Hans Ratna Maharaj Sahib, he's done 107 Masakshams, which is 1 month of fast Upwas. He's done that 107 times. That's 3,210 days, or nearly 9 years of monthly fasting. Not to mention his 180-day fast that he does. And sometimes he does these without speaking. He does it with Monvrat. I find it difficult to even go through a few hours or an hour sometimes without speaking. Sometimes not necessarily because I want to, but because you have to, because something happens. But the discipline that he has to be able to do this is incredible. And, you know, he's never like, when you look at his face, it's so bright, it's sparkling, that he's never sitting or slouching or thinking, oh, whenever you see him, he's so alert, you wouldn't even think that he's fasting. And then we've got, you know, Hemwalab Maharaj Sahib, who's done more than 10,000 Aymbils. That's 27 years of Aymbils. And he's got a vow that he will continue for the rest of his life to do Aymbils. So to do anumodana or send a prayer to these incredible souls to wish them well, that they have an effortless fast, or they receive Shuddh Nirdosh Gojri. Even those simple things, anumodana to everybody that we know and we don't know. That's a simple thing that we can do. We can, if you see an ambulance going past, you can say Naukar mantra and send good wishes to that person. Or if you see a dead animal on the street, you could say a Naukar mantra and say that hopefully that they get a better next life, next bow. Rather than sometimes, people think, oh, it's good that that's dead because we've got too many foxes or too many hedgehogs. That's not up to us to decide. We're just judging it because we live in this, and assume things, but they have equally the right to live. So, we can just send a prayer. And there is a lot of power in all of these things. Don't be happy in people's misery. When people get a parking ticket, it's sometimes you see people smiling because somebody else has received a parking ticket. We don't need to get involved in that. If somebody's running for the bus and they miss it, sometimes the driver will just shut the doors and go off. Or if we can help and maybe hail down the bus, it might be a good thing because we've allowed somebody to catch that bus. So, being kind of positive and neutral about things. If there is something going on, not to get involved in it mentally. There is no such thing as an innocent bystander. If you're watching something where something is going on, where there's a conflict, you have got yourself involved in it, because mentally there will be rag and dvesh even without us realizing. We might take sides. So don't get involved, or be neutral, because you are then otherwise binding yourself into that situation. We have to be so careful of keeping our mind in check, because there is so much going around that will affect us. Plants also feel pain. They are living beings. When you go shopping, I often see people snap off the ends of binda. So bindas are living beings. They feel pain. Maybe don't do that if you do that, because it's Vinay comes into it. Or, when we're doing apresudartai, when we do shak bhaji or fruit, we can say Namo Jinanam or Namo Orientanam, and that soul will be leaving that body and wishing them a better life. And then I just want to touch also on newspapers. Newspapers are gnan. They have print and knowledge, and people like to reuse and use newspapers, but it is gnan. So, if they're stepped on, or if they're used to put rubbish in, we are doing avinay to that gnan, and that binds danavarniya karma, which will, come and pay its fruits to us at some point or the other. And then a small thing about mindset. So last time I mentioned about the self-talk that we have with ourselves. Internally, we've always got dialogue going on. And it's very important that whatever you say, your body and your mind will help to act upon it. And I use the example of parking, that if you keep saying, I'm not going to find a parking spot, you won't find a parking spot. Similarly, with all of this, don't say I can't do anything or I don't do anything. Because guess what? You won't be able to do anything if that's what your internal dialogue is. Instead, we can be grateful for what we've got and what you are doing, because all of you are doing something or the other. Everybody's doing something out of everything that we'll cover. That's why you are all here. So, anumodana to you all. But your self-talk, have a positive attitude, have an intention for it to increase, and if you've got a goal, have that in your intention as well, that I would like to be able to do this, or, you know, I will get the strength to do this. And over time it will happen. But the more negative talk there is, the more negative things that will come into fruition. So keep the talk really, really positive. Also, why is this happening to me is another question. It's something that really be mindful of, because we understand now why things are happening because of whatever's been bound in the past. So there's no way, most often than not, we will understand why things are happening, because we don't remember everything from the past, and we won't ever be able to make sense of it. Certain things we might be able to make sense of, but even then, it makes no difference. It's happened and it's gone in the past, and we won't be able to correct it. So we can just draw a line in the sand and say, from now on, I'm just going to move forward. I'm going to forget it and look at it as an opportunity that this is playing out, and I can stay steady in my mind and positive, and it will shed as a result. Whereas if I contemplate it, if I question it, if I keep going on over and over it, or if I want sympathy, or I feel sorry for myself, it will keep coming back and it will keep repeating itself. And often it will, you know, increase in size. So that question, why is this happening to me, is not something that you kind of want to dwell on. You want to just be positive, do your soul cleansing and move on, and spend your valuable time that we have in this life as we're learning all the good things to focus on the positives. Any questions? I've spoken a lot about Vinay. Okay, move on to Vayavach. So Vayavach is serving in its essential base term, serving religious teachers, sadhu bhagwan, sadhvijis, virtuous people, colleagues, companions, and anyone really, the sick, the aged, the weak, the needy, all done with positive bhav, unconditionally, without thinking or keeping a track or note of what you've done, for who and how much. If it's done really positively, you accumulate apratipati punya or akshay punya. What is this? Akshay punya is punya that stays with you till you go to moksha. And by doing Vayavach, you accumulate laklut karma. Sorry, you don't accumulate, you shed laklut karma, which means that apra karma in its lakh kapai jai, they are shed. You bind punyanupanti punya, which gives you strength and conveniences, all greens lights, things happen with ease. And then if you use that for good, it creates more new good punya. The other type is papanubandhi punya, and that is punya that makes you bind pap karma, makes you do negative deeds and bad karmas. So, you know, like when we do Dev Guru Dharma, we do Vandan. So whether in person or even, you know, when we do our prayers, and we do this with our highest bhav, our highest kind of essence, it has a really positive effect. If somebody has punya, the jeev has well-being, it saves you from pain and suffering, you have immunity, or good things are happening to you, and you naturally have compassion and kindness towards beings, and your bhav becomes higher and higher. When you face challenges, not necessarily in your, you know, immediate circle, but in the wider community, you'll be thinking, how can I be of help? How can I do something? And, you know, this selflessness it's in itself just protect you. You will get the necessary protection without even trying. You know, our Bhavisma Tirthankar Neminath Bhagwan, he turned away from his wedding procession when he saw how many animals were going to be slaughtered for his wedding feast. Muhammad Paigambar, he was believed by the Muslims to be the last prophet in a series of prophets, including Moses and Jesus, and is considered as the founder of Islam. Now, he was being chased, him and his friends were being chased by people who wanted to kill him. And they were running through a forest, and he found a cave covered in a scorpion nest. But he decided not to break it. His men were about to do that so they could go in and hide, but he decided not to break it. Instead, he saw a small opening underneath, and they crawled through underneath and went inside. So when the people that were chasing him arrived there, they looked at it and they thought, actually, this doesn't look like it's been disturbed recently. So they just left it and they went and they couldn't find him, and that saved him. So the fact that he saved the scorpions' lives and didn't want to disturb it saved him and his friends in turn. There's also the story of Sangam. He was a little boy. Then him and his mum lived in a small village, and they were really poor. And one day there was a festival, and the kids, they're all playing together. And after playing, that all his friends started to eat kheer, and the poor boy, his mom couldn't afford it, and he went home and he asked his mom that he really wanted to eat kheer. So his mom went next door and asked for a little bit of rice and sugar and milk, and she made him some kheer. And as he was about to eat the kheer, Sadhu Bhagwant came into his house and said Dharmalabh. And the boy saw the Sadhu Bhagwan, and he had this feeling inside him thinking, wow, I can serve something really good to this Sadhu Bhagwan. And he gave him all the kheer. And then he, from that deed of doing that, his next life, he became Shalibhadra because of the sentiment and the power that he had when he gave this kid to the Sadhu Bhagwan. He didn't hesitate. He didn't feel that, oh my God, I'm not going to get anything. He was just happy that he could offer this to him. And his good intentions made him Shalibhadra in his next book. Now, Shalibhadra was in the same time as King Shrenik, and they had more wealth than the King Shrenik. Incredible amount of wealth. And Mavi Bhagwan said that, whoever's doing seva of a person that's ill or needs help, when they do that, it's as good as doing seva for Mavi Bhagwan himself. That's how he said it's regarded. It helps you grow your knowledge faster, and your sadhana, your aradhana, everything is fruitful more faster. The benefit is exponential. Buddha Bhagwan, he went to stay somewhere, and there was an unwell sadhu at that place, and he was suffering with something where there was a terrible smell emanating from his body, and nobody wanted to go to that room. And he himself went to that room to comfort the sadhu, and he cleaned him, and he didn't feel that actually I'm too senior for this. He did everything. The other sadhus under him, his sishyas, said, this sadhu's never done anything for us. Why should we help him? And Buddha said that we are here to help others. We've left the material and the transactional world, and we have no expectations. And this is what we should do. It's a good seva to do. So he continued to do that. So that's about Vayavach, which is serving. Any questions on that? Any messages in the chat?
Nothing at the moment, apart from, well, everything's been well explained and great positive messages.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I think everybody's familiar with Vaya, which is good. Next one is Swadhyay. So what is Swadhyay? Swa is you, your soul, and Adhyan is Gnan. So when you do Swadhyay, you're trying to connect with your soul, to learn about your soul, to go inwards and become connected. And so we use Swadhyay as a tool, and often it's done during Samayik. Doesn't have to be, but it usually is. So you read religious texts, listen to discourses and sermons to stop the mind from wandering to ill and negative thoughts and halt the karmas. Again, it's not to say that the mind won't wander, but it's just we have to be conscious to bring it back if it does wander. But this helps. And, you know, especially when you read the religious texts, but then you learn about them, you learn its meaning, and that helps you connect a lot easier compared to just doing something as a process. Our sutras, which are from the agams, you know, when people realize they don't want to waste time anymore, they may have a realization. They don't want to increase their life cycles. They want to lessen their bab karma and try and stay positive. They do swadhyay. They learn the new sutras, the meanings, and try and implement it into your life. And it helps to stop the mental chatter, the thoughts, the desires, because we constantly have desires, whether it's material or, you know, emotions, emotional desires, often certain ones that people are addicted to, whether it's, you know, enjoying something or feeling angry. Anger, funnily enough, can be an emotion that's addictive, and it sometimes happens to people where, you know, in an instant they become really angry, and it's not something that just happens to you. It's something that you should be able to control. It might not be instant, but it can happen if you keep trying. Same with everything else. You know, our sadhu sadhvijis often have the recitation or chanting going on in their mind throughout, whenever they're doing anything. And equally, we can as well. You can't always recite things out loud, but mentally, you can have that going on in your mind all the time, regardless of whatever you're doing. As long as, you know, like if you have shoes on, for example, you can't say it out loud, but you can still have it going on in your mind. And what does that do? It stops you from thinking about other things. I know I keep saying the same thing about thinking, but we spend so long in our mind, in our head, and there's so many thoughts going through our head, which often when you reflect are not necessary and they're not positive, or they're just too busy and they keep us in this stressed environment. And this will just help calm things down, make you content, make you peaceful, and bring you to this, you know, equanimity state. So you might say, well, how is this stop? So when it's done with focus, it keeps all the senses under control. You know, thoughts aren't doing ashubh karya or pap karya. You're keeping your desires at bay, including food or other material acquisitions. Your rag or attachment over food and water will lessen over time, and learning the meanings will help to engage better and get more focus. You learn, you understand, you question things, you know, exactly like you're doing right now. And you connect deeper. And if you consistently keep doing it, you do connect deeper. And things find you instead of you having to search for them. You just attract things. Whatever you need will come to you without you even seeking it. And many of us achieve Kevagnan through this mode. You know, as we age, our senses will get weaker. And if we do the learning whilst everything is working well, at least the mind will be able to recall it as we get older. If we can't read, or if you're not, if we've been practicing, you'll want to do it. What you find often that you might not want to learn something new at a certain stage. So if you've already learned it, then it's easy to recall it and just to hang on to it, rather than trying to learn something new. But it's done for yourself and purely for your soul. It's not something that you're doing to show off to others that look how much I know, or the ego builds up sometimes when there is knowledge, and that's not the right way, because then the other things will not surface. The arrogance and ego will get stronger, and that binds gnana varniya karma. Next one is Kayotsarg. I've kept this very, very brief on the slide at least. So Kaya is our body, our sharir, and Utsarg is to tyag karo apna body, to give up. So it's not to give up your body as in the soul leaving the body, but basically when you are in Kayotsarg Dhyan, you are really just in dhyan where you're not thinking about your body. You're giving up your bodily needs and staying still and doing your kausag. There's no attachment or thinking about the comforts. On the top right, there is the story about Gaj Sukumal. He was Krishna Maharaja's younger brother and prince, and his parents arranged his marriage with the daughter of somebody called Somil Brahmin. And he went to Neminath Bhagwan's Deshna. So after achieving Kevagnan and Bhagwan was giving sermons, he was at this discourse in the Samosaran. And listening, his bhav changed and he got vairagya. So he wanted to renounce the material world and he wanted to take diksha. So after a little bit of, his parents weren't exactly happy about this because his marriage was arranged, but he got diksha from Neminath Bhagwan and he became a muni. He goes to, he was actually Charam Shariri at this stage. So Charam Shariri means that this is his last life before he achieves moksha. And he goes to this cemetery and he stands in Kausag Dhyan. You can see here, he's in the cemetery. And this is Somil Brahman, who is the father of, who was going to be his future father-in-law. Now, he's standing there in Dhyan, and this Brahman sees him, and he becomes enraged, so angry at him, because Gaj Sukumal Muni renounced his life and didn't marry his daughter. And so what he does is he gets some wet clay and makes like a pot round his head. And from the funeral that's going on, he gets the coals, the hot coals, and puts them on his head. Now, can you imagine the extreme pain that he must have experienced at this point because he had hot coals on his head? And he stayed steadfast in his Kausag Dhyan, bearing his pain. And in his mind, the thoughts that were going on was, I got a chance to clear my old debts. Because unless I've done something and I created this, nobody else can make me suffer. So I must have done something to this Somil Brahman in the past. And let me clear all my debts and get salvation. And he just stood there steadfast. He said, this is the opportunity I was waiting for. And thanked the soul that made him get what he wanted. and he needed to clear the heavy burden that was over his soul, and he got Keval Gnan and Moksha as a result of this last act. We look at Parshvanath Bhagwan here, and he had, for those of you that attend the Tuesday classes with Ajit Bhai, he's talking about Parshvanath Bhagwan at the moment, and how Kamat and Parshvanath Bhagwan kept meeting, and all the atrocities that Kamat did to Parshvanath Bhagwan over his various lifetimes. And, you know, here Parshvanath Bhagwan is in Dhyan, Kausak Dhyan, and Kamat is pouring rain, and Padmavati Devi at the bottom under Parshvanath Bhagwan's feet, and Dharmendra Dev at the top protecting Bhagwan from drowning. But Parshvanath Bhagwan is lean in his dhyan, and he doesn't have a good thought for Dharmendra Dev and Padmavati Devi, or ill thought for Kamat. He's staying neutral, completely neutral, and just continuing in his dhyan. Same with Mahavir Bhagwan here. We talked about this a little bit, and all the upsags that he suffered, but stayed steadfast in his dhyan, whether it was snakes biting him, or there was a fire underneath him, there were tigers attacking him. There are so many things that happened, and he remained neutral as well. Okay. And then the last one is dhyan. So dhyan is basically focus on something to go into a meditative state. And before we do this, we kind of take check of where we are, try and get into a pure state of mind, and positivity for all beings, because there's no point starting dhyan when your mind is so busy and active and thinking, I have to do this, I have to cook this, I haven't turned that off, or I need to ring this person back. If we're doing all of these things, there's too much mental chatter going on. We need to have a focus, what we're going to do dhyan on, whether it's going to be Navgar Mantra or something else, and just get into that state before we go into dhyan. And then there are 4 categories of dhyan. There's Artha dhyan, Rodra dhyan, Dharma dhyan, and Shukla dhyan. Now, the first 2, Artha dhyan and Rodra dhyan, are something that we want to stay away from, because they're destructive, and Ashuk dhyan. Artha dhyan is pain, or when the person is unhappy, then their mind tends to go to Artha dhyan, contemplating bad things, or like an illness that's not happened yet, but considering it happening to us. So you're looking into the future, but not in a positive light of things. You're imagining things that could go wrong, doing chinta for things. So, often it's said, especially by the Jnanis, that if you can't do something about something that you're worried about, there's nothing to think about. You only focus on things that you can influence. And worrying about these things, especially things that haven't happened, is just wasting your mental energy. Rodra dhyan. Sorry, one more thing on the Artha dhyan. So, the number 2, development of a new relationship. So, for example, we often have to come across or be in the company of or sit next to people that you may think, actually, I'd rather not, or you don't get on with, or, especially at work where there's no choice. And you might keep thinking, why do I have to sit next to them or spend time with them? We miss the main event of why we're somewhere or why we're doing something. And then we get caught up in that thing about who that person is, what their behavior is, or what they're wearing, or why they do certain things. And that is something that we don't need to do. We can just discard it and focus on all the other things that are going on. And that will stop us binding, because all of these things, when we focus on, it just binds, even if there's nothing to it. it occupies our mind and defeats the object. And if our Ayushya Bandh happens at that point in time, which is what the determination is of where we're going in our next life, and if we are in Artha Dhyan, then likelihood is the next birth is going to be in Tiriyanch Gati, which is the animals. So we have to just really keep our minds in check, because this can happen at any point in time. So we want to try and consciously be in our positive state of mind as much as possible. Going back to Parshvanath Bhagwan and Marubhuti, in his bhav as Marubhuti and Kamat, and they had Rag Dvesh. Marubhuti had Dvesh against Parshvanath Bhagwan all the time. In their first life that's talked about, where Kamat had an affair with Parshvanath Bhagwan's wife, and then it kind of came to light, and he had to move out, and he was so angry. So when Parshvanath Bhagwan went to apologize to him, he again got enraged, and he hit him on the head with a stone. And at that point, Parshvanath Bhagwan had a thought that I've come to apologize, and he's hit me with the stone. And that thought made him, in his next birth, an elephant. So he then realized in the next birth, so he was an elephant and Kamat was a snake. And again they met, and the snake bit him, the elephant, Parshvanath Bhagwan saw. But this time he stayed calm and he stayed positive, and he didn't think about what was happening through Kamat. So that positivity took him to Devlok, whereas Kamat went to Narak. So just being in that mindset where we're not thinking about other people and their actions, and we're just focusing on our own, is what this is saying we need to do. Rodra Dhyan is much more stronger, but in a negative way, is very bhayankar thoughts, really terrible, very violent, extreme greed and selfishness, thoughts about revenge and causing damage. It binds really bad, strong karmas, and likelihood of going to Narakati as a result of that. So the two types of dhyan we want to kind of harbor are Dharma dhyan and Shukla dhyan. Dharma dhyan is reflecting on the ways and means towards realization of the self, and Shukla dhyan is reflecting on the purity of the soul. Dharma dhyan kriya without actual dhyan is not fruitful. So if your body is doing the kriya, for example, if you're doing puja or if you're doing samayik, but your mind is thinking about other things, then they're not in synchronization. So we need to bring the mind back to what we're doing at hand, so that we're in sync. And we've carved out this time to do these things. So if we're focused 100%, we will progress more than 100%. So staying content, no matter what the situation we face, we'll shed our karmas easily, and it allows our soul to progress to moksha. Any questions so far?
Bijalben, there's one that's come through from Seema. What should we do once the newspapers are already finished reading?
We can recycle them. It's just not to do avinay to knowledge. That's the point. So I'm just going to do a brief conclusion. It's Maina Sundari, we just finished Aymbil, and Shripal Rajana Rasa is recited during Aymbil. And, you know, she saw the longer term gain and she accepted the shorter term pain. Her father threw her out with only the clothes on her back. She was insulted by the people in her kingdom, but she was really positive and she accepted a husband who was really unwell, and didn't complain. And, you know, so many years, thousands and thousands of years later, we're still talking about it. And it's an incredible story. So everything you are doing is for you alone. This is your journey. And, you know, you've heard this so many times. We come alone and we will go alone. Everyone looks at their own convenience, and this is for the progression of your soul. Look after your thoughts, your words, and your deeds, and everything else will look after itself. It's not to gain recognition in front of anyone, or to be the center of attention, or to see your name written somewhere, because really nobody else is looking at it except us. When we see our name, we're the only ones that look at it. You know, social media, news, everything kind of has a feeling of fear of missing out, or it generates negative emotions. You know, news is just full of, it's never happy. So again, it makes you do rag dvesh. You know, you might get dvesh for Donald Trump or somebody else, and you think, you contemplate that, then you talk about it to somebody else, it develops. Or, you know, something else that you might come across. So, and these, you don't need these things in your life or on your soul. When you sleep at night, if you, the last things that you look at or listen to or watch is what goes through your mind for the next 8 hours or 10 hours. Now, imagine if this is all great positive stuff, what impact it will have on you and the particles inside, compared to the news or negativity, which will then keep going through your mind all the time. So be careful of what you put inside. Time is limited and tomorrow is not promised, and our senses may not be working tomorrow as they are today. So a small investment of time into your well-being, into the well-being of your soul, will pay off, because nothing else will accompany your soul when you leave this life. And, you know, everything isn't perfect. And this is actually the opportunity that we have to progress, because it's not perfect. If it was perfect, we wouldn't need to do anything. But actually, when there are challenges, is our opportunity to overcome them, to shed our karmas, to uplift and to cleanse our soul. So if we look at it that way, rather than thinking, why is this happening to me, or it shouldn't happen to me, then you will immediately see a change and you will see things really, really differently. Any comments or questions or suggestions?
There's nothing in the chat that I can see. Oh, there's Anjali's put, brilliant session. You have a very soothing voice.
Thank you. Okay. I just wanted to say that there were some questions relating to the medicines from last time. I did message Guru Maharaj, and if anyone wants he wants some specific details, because it's not a general thing that you can just say. So if anyone wants to reach out specifically, then we can ask that directly, and then we can take that forward from there. There was something else where I had a slide about all the different, Naukasi and Borisi and the Karma Nirjara in terms of hell life. So all of that is from the scriptures. And then, I think that was, if there's any feedback or anything, then do let me know. But I just wanted to acknowledge a few people that have helped me pull this together, and for their blessings and encouragement, and Gurudev and Prabha, Jayesh Bhai as well, and Nilaben, whose classes I do from Kenya as well, and Bharat Bhai as well, who's a great sounding board and always happy to guide. So, and thank you to the Zoom team as well, as always.
Excellent, Swadhyaya Bijal. For all your efforts, and it's a real eye opener. And as you said, we shouldn't, should make the most of this, human life. Thank you.
Yes. And I commend you all of you that have made the time, especially people from Kenya who have stayed up so late, making the time to join and listen and support and participate. Everybody's here because they're interested in progressing, and I wish you all success and progress in this journey. It's a beautiful, incredible life that we have, and we're so fortunate to be born into this religion. It's not all necessarily religious if people feel that it's more spiritual, because there's a bit of everything in this. It's not just food fasting, so there is so much more we can do, and there's a lot on Jaina as well, and maybe at some stage we'll do something around that if people are interested, and how we can do things in a more humane way in our daily lives. But thank you very much.
Nilaben, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, hello, Bijal. How are you?
Pranam, Nilaben.
Pranam, very well explained and a beautiful presentation. I'm really proud of you, and I wish you all the best in the future. Keep it up.
Thank you, Nilaben.
Thank you very much. We really enjoyed, and it's really a good session. Lots of information you have given to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for your blessings and always guiding us.
Thank you very much. Sata Marejo.
Thank you, Bijalben, for the last couple of sessions. There's a lot of thank yous on the chat from lots of people. But what you've taught us has been inspiring. And what you're doing, the Varshitap, is really inspiring as well. Like, I think one day I'd like to be able to do that. But Bijalben, I hope you remain in good sata for the remaining 2 weeks?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you so much, dear Gurupasai. Actually, I've got a question here from somebody who's asking, why is it okay to use dry ginger but not fresh ginger or turmeric? So fresh ginger and fresh turmeric have infinite lives in them while they're alive, similar to all other root vegetables like potatoes. Whereas when they're dry, there is no more life in there. And that's why it's used more for medicinal than anything else. But because there is no more life in there, that's why we're allowed to use dry ginger and dry turmeric. But by Nilaben, if there's anything else you might want to add to that, please share.
Also, dry things, they are not growing again. When you dry it up, they don't have a life and they can't grow.
Okay.
Bijalben, there's just one more follow-up question about the newspaper. If we put newspapers and magazines into the recycle bin, does it cause Ashatapa?
Ashatna. Yeah, it's a good question. I think because I think they get recycled and reused. I will double check this, but so what our books say is that we shouldn't eat from things that have writing on it. We shouldn't use it for waste, like throwing food waste in there and throwing it away, or where we're actively or stepping on it, for example, where we put it on the floor and do, I don't know, whether painting or any kind of works, because we're constantly stamping on the words, which is what creates asatna. But I think recycling is okay, but I will double check and come back on that.
Thank you so much, Bijalben, for today. And 2 weeks ago, there's honestly a lot of thank yous coming through from everyone.
Thank you.
Our next session will be in 2 weeks' time, which will be, I think, the 30th of April. Sundip Bhai will send out what the topic is. Or one more question's come in. Sorry, Bijalben.
Okay.
What can we use instead to throw away rubbish hygienically without using newspaper? And that's coming from T.
Yeah, good question. Bharat.
And I mean, a practice not done here. I mean, they say that you could sort of bury the newspapers underground, but that is not something which is possible to do. That's not possible to do it in this country, and it's quite tedious. And also the best option is recycling, where it is whereby it is reused again. And even though it does cause ashata, but compared to putting it into a dump bin, it creates it has a lot less ashata.
They're asking how do they dispose of rubbish hygienically without using newspapers?
Don't have a clear answer on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's difficult, especially here, because we even use so much plastic to get rid of things, and that's not great for the environment. Newspapers, yeah, we have them available fairly freely, but again, we can't see the damage we're doing at this moment, but it does create, we're doing Nanya Satna. So, yeah, not sure about that. Sorry, I'll come back. I will check.
Thank you. Apologies, I think I said the next session's on the 30th of April. It's actually the 1st of May. Thank you everyone for coming, listening to Bijalben. Bijalben, again, keep in good sata for the next 2 weeks.
Thank you, Pranam, Jai Jinendra.
Pranam, Jai Jinendra.
Did you want to close with a prayer, Bijalben?
Yes, of course, yeah. जिन आज्ञा विरुद्ध कहीं पर बुलाया है तो मन वचन काया करी तसम इच्छा में विक्रम Sarvamangala-mangalyam Sarvakalyana-karanam Pradhanam Sarvadharmanam Jainam Jaiti Shasanam. With that, Santa Marijo, thank you very much.